let's talk about social media. Um, I like to talk about numbers a lot. I'm a data person. I've removed Twitter from this list because I don't use Twitter anymore. I haven't used Twitter actively in a long time, and obviously most of us have migrated to Blue Sky. Blue Sky, I'm sitting at just under 4,000 followers. I was at like 7,600 on Twitter, so I'm over half of what I was on Twitter, but the engagement is infinitely better. Anybody who's on Blue Sky knows that that's the case. However, you all probably have noticed if you've been on Blue Sky that it's starting to just kind of feel like Twitter again. In the beginning, it was feeling really good, and now there's kind of the same discourse cycles and bot engagement and dogpiling and nonsense, which is disheartening because it felt really good when the first migration began. Twitch, which is where we are right now. I went up 68 followers from where I was, so it's nice to be over 500. That's a cool milestone. YouTube is at 2,300 subscribers, which is great, up 600 from before. Itch is just under 5,000 followers. This is increasingly becoming a more important metric for me, just because people figuring out when your games are released, this is one of the easiest ways to make that happen, is if they follow you on Itch, they get notifications through email, through their feed. So it's really, really valuable to like follow creators that you're interested in on Itch. That went up about 1,000. Mailing list has basically been static. Despite like people opting into mailing lists after campaigns and stuff, it's just kind of static. And, people leave mailing lists all the time. Part of it is that I switched my mailing list. I used to use MailChimp. Now I'm using Substack because I'm kind of combining the mailing list and the blog at the same time instead of having two separate things, which is what I had of WordPress and MailChimp. Substack kind of just does it all. So I started using that. It's been good so far. It's been fine. I have no complaints. But yeah, I don't know. Like, people always talk about how valuable a mailing list is, and it's just it's been like really plateaued for me, which is whatever. It is what it is. Patreon. I just opened it up again. I just opened up my Patreon. The billing is still paused. Like, I didn't want to like open it up and just like surprise bill a bunch of people. So like billing kicks in 2 weeks for folks who want to be on the Patreon still. Of the 62 patrons, 45 of them are paid. It's cool to have it back. A big thing to note about my Patreon is that I'm doing it differently than I did before. Before, I had this sort of like pressure that I gave myself of like, I have to release a new thing every month to my patrons to make it feel like it's worth it to them. And that was terrible. I really kind of burned out from doing that, which is why 2 years ago I closed my Patreon. Well, I brought it back, and I'm very much just treating it as what a Patreon is supposed to be, which is, do you want to just throw some money to support an artist that you're interested in, a creator that you're interested in? So people who back or, support me on it, you'll get like maybe some early access to like some docs and stuff, but it's mostly just, hey, if you think my work is cool and if you have a couple bones to throw every month, like, feel free to do it. The Gila RPG's Discord continues to be in limbo. I very rarely engage with it these days. I very rarely engage with any Discord server. I'm not really engaging in any, actually. I use DMs on Discord, but that's about it. I don't really know what I'm going to do with the Gila RPG's Discord. It's not like it's very active anyway. So part of me wants to just do the third iteration and really keep it small and like just the people that I want to actively talk to. Which is what the second iteration was supposed to be, and then I failed that plan. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'd be curious to know what some people think about that. Yeah, Binary, I should read yours because you have a very active server from what I remember. I don't engage with Discord servers anymore, but you have a very active server, so I'd be curious to know what you think about all that. Here's the thing to note about all of these metrics. They all obviously went up. All the numbers went up. Oh no, it's the weird Christmas chiptune songs, which is just weird. Um, every metric went up, which is nice, but they went up less than they did in 2023. So all of this is growth, but it's slower growth than I had in 2023. So comparing 23 to 22, big growth. 23 to 24, growth not as big. Um, that's just something to note. By comparison, I'll have more specific comparisons on things like when we talk about like finances, but it just shows that I need to be more active about promoting these things, I think. And I'm just like, these two in particular, I just don't actively engage with enough, I think, for folks to feel like they need to follow or subscribe. This is obviously going to also start to lax a lot once I have a kid. My ability to just hop on stream randomly is going to go away. But if I do this stuff, it'll have to be very structured. Okay, let's talk about projects. I think I released 7 things. Here's the things that I released this year in order. And this is based off of publishing on itch. Dusk is published. Dusk is up right now. I published it at the very start of last year, so it's almost reaching a year since it was first published. And if you've been following me on Blue Sky, you know that I have been having a crisis, an existential crisis when it comes to Dusk and what it's going to be. I think I've figured it out. You know, take a shot every time I say that and you'll be wasted, but I think I figured it out. It just means all the work that I did in the last like 3 days is useless. Or not useless, but it's just going to get used for a different game. But I think I have a general sense about what I want to do with this, and I'll talk more about that later. Reap, which was technically kickstarted in 23, but was published and released on Kickstarter in February. So that's out there in the world for folks to check out. You know, Reap is fine. I think people love Rune. Rune continues to be easily my most popular game. Easily. And Reap, I thought was going to be like, oh, well, people like Rune and people like Necromancers. They'll like this. And they do, but like, it's like night and day comparison in terms of like how people engaged with Reap, both at like a crowdfunding level and just like a level after that. There's probably a lot of reasons for that. So it's difficult to say for sure why one way or another. But, you know, it's fine. It's out there. Luna and Nest were back to back. I can't believe how quickly I did these 2 games. These are 2 new Novaverse games in the same year, within months of each other. Luna is using the my sort of, oh no, the Christmas songs have got to go. Luna is using my sort of my slimmed down version of the resistance system, which is what you find in like Spire and Heart. I'm actually playing in a Luna mini campaign in like a couple weeks. Aaron Voigt is going to be running it, and Aaron's amazing as a person, as a writer, as a video essay creator on YouTube, and Aaron's also like a big Nova fan, which is awesome. So I'm excited to have him run Luna. Kickstarted Luna, did a sprint campaign with that, and I loved doing a sprint campaign. Nest did on BackerKit, and here's what I'll say about BackerKit. We might as well just talk about that now. BackerKit has so many interesting bells and whistles. There's a lot of cool tools available on BackerKit. The like keeping the back air train going and like the streams and the polls. There's so many things that you can engage with as a creator that's really neat. And like the cool like cross collaboration campaign stuff that they're doing, like they're baking it in naturally, is neat. The problem is there's just not nearly as big of an audience on BackerKit as there is Kickstarter. Like, that's the reality. Like, if you like care about the financial outcome of your game, you are probably wiser to put it on Kickstarter than you are to do BackerKit. That's not to say that you can't do well on BackerKit. Obviously you can, and there's plenty of examples. But I would say if you are somebody who doesn't have a very big following and needs every possible bit of engagement tool at your disposal, Kickstarter's audience is available to you compared to BackerKit's audience, and they're pretty different. There is, I don't know, so it's hard to say much more than that. I haven't engaged with BackerKit beyond as a crowdfunder besides Nest, and I don't think I'll probably come back to it anytime soon. But that's not to say that I would never go back to it. I did notice that Binary said in chat, it's very strange feeling when one thing takes off and others don't, and there's no clear answer why. Yeah, it's really interesting. Because, like, I mean, if you put them side by side, like Reap and Rune, Reap looks so much better than Rune, right? I did the layout of Rune, and it's fine. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not good. It's fine. Mike, like, did incredible layout for Reap. It looks really, really good. And it just didn't click for people. It's just not what they wanted. And that's fine. Thorn was my other project that I was really excited to have launched last year. And that is still also actively being developed. I think I have a big rules update for Thorn, mostly baked out in my head and somewhat on the page. That's going to be coming soon. This I itch funded. And I'm glad I did. Thorn and Dusk are games that I'm going to be working on a lot this year, 2025. And they're going to be passion projects. They're going to be projects that I can excitedly work on with small pieces, modular designs, seasonal stuff, which we'll talk about more. And by putting a lot of pressure on them, by having them be like big games that are on Kickstarter or something like that, it would take a lot of that like passion project aspect away. So I'm excited to continue to work on Thorn, and I'm going to be making some cool hex crawl stuff with it very soon. The last big project that came out last year was Loot. It was also on Kickstarter. It did fine. It did fine. About like $12,500, which, you know, sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But, you know, I paid a bunch of people to be part of Loot. I had like 15 different collaborators on the project. Art, editing, all of that, printing. So, you know, that starts to disappear pretty rapidly. I'll be fulfilling it very soon. It's on the way from the printer. It should be arriving at my house within like 2 weeks, I think. And then it'll start going out to backers, which I'm excited about. Interesting thing to note about Loot is that it got the Projects We Love tag on it, which, as far as I could tell, did nothing. From when I looked at all the analytics of where backers were coming from, that didn't seem to do anything. So while it was a nice little badge to have on the page, I didn't notice it as something that boosted the game in any way. The last thing I released was on the last day of the year, which is the Gila RPGs trophy list. It is probably the favorite thing that I made this year in 24. It's really dumb. It's just, you know, it's 5 of my games, and I made 5 trophies that are just imaginary achievement points that you can get your Gila gamer score. I'd love to do something with it where, like, if you meet me at a convention and your Gila gamer score is at a certain level, I'll give you, like, a sticker that is, like, you know, ooh, you have a bronze level Gila gamer score or whatever. I have plenty of time to figure that out, and you have plenty of time to increase your Gila gamer score. I want to add so much more to this. I want to add more trophies to the existing games that are on there. I want to add more of my games. This was the most fun thing that I wrote this year. I'm going to keep saying this year, by the way, when I'm talking about 24, even though we're all watching this in the year 2025. Yeah, Binary, it's true. I mean, at least from my experience, the Projects We Love doesn't really seem to do anything. Yeah, the trophy list is fun, and stickers would be fun. So maybe I'll do something like that. Um, it'd be cool to like commission some like actual like cool little. Oh, this is that weird song. Um, this cool little like metal thing. I know like the Drakes did that when they commissioned Galen Peugeot to make medals for their achievement system for Dead Belt. Hey, no, you're not too late. I mean, we're still early on in things. There's still plenty of talk to be had. We're just wrapping up projects from this year. All right, so what is actively in development? I have two sections for in development. One is active and one is like background / treading water. Thorn and Dusk are actively in development now, and they are going to be my two passion projects for the year. Thorn. Oh, Glyphtide, that's a fun idea. A leaderboard of the highest scores for runs of Rune and Reap would be fun to look at. That'd be really neat. Thorn, I want to be my, what I'm going to call, ideal fantasy game. I've been talking about that for a while, but I think my ideal fantasy game has no dice in it. It's very puzzle solvey. It's very improvisational. Combat has that weird sort of puzzle solving aspect to it. And I think I'm really excited to do some hex crawl stuff after talking with Will Yobst and Josh Hiddy a lot about that stuff. I think with the big rules update that I have planned for Thorn, I will then be able to start moving into sort of a modular seasonal approach to supporting it and just kind of creating cool hex crawl maps for you to explore, which will be like part of my world. And like there will eventually be like an open world book that you can use for the whole thing. Dusk is going to be a very similar thing. And I think Dusk is going to be Lumen 2.0, just like Thorn. There will be some slight deviations in terms of how the two interpret the system, but I think largely it's going to be that. This is definitely a hex crawl compared to like Thorn, where I think it's probably going to be a hex crawl. Dusk is like absolutely a hex crawl. You are going to be wandering weird shards, roaming the dusk, exploring, going into the ruins of old Oberyn, collecting data and material, and like dealing with random factions. And this is what I think would ultimately like to be the living RPG, which I've talked a lot about in mini streams, which is that idea of, it's basically what Helldivers is, but as a TTRPG. Like, there's a shared map, a shared world map, by which everybody who's playing the game interacts with. I collect play data like monthly from people. I update the map. I send the updated map out to the GMs. They now have an updated map that like the factions have moved around. Mission modifiers have changed because of X, Y, and Z reasons from the play data that I've collected. I really want to do it. I really want to do it. You'll see. It'll come up later in the stream, but I really want to do it. Dragon Slayers is like, this sucker's ready to rock and roll at this point. I've been actively playtesting it for a while. It's been really, really fun. A thing that I just have to really remember about Dragon Slayers is that the point of it, here's the point of Dragon Slayers. Here's why it exists. It's not for me. I am not designing this game for me. At the end of the day, if I were to play a fantasy game, I'm playing Thorn. I'm not playing Dragon Slayers. What does Dragon Slayers exist for then? It exists as an off-ramp for Dragon game players, right? It's an off-ramp for D&D players. And it's basically your characters are just going to be classes and magic items. There's not going to be like races or species and all that nonsense, feats, all that stuff. And a big chunk of the book is actually going to be very much dedicated to, hey, you probably own like a bunch of adventure modules from games that you want to play. Here's a cooler system that you can use to play all those adventure modules. That's very much going to be sort of the premise of this. My goal is to fund it, ideally early this year, so that I can release it at Gen Con. It's always good to have a big release at a con. It just typically does well. And Dragon Slayers would just like do really well at Gen Con. So I'm hoping so. All right, there's some chat that I want to catch up on before we talk about Omen. The Diceless Hex Crawl, I think I have an idea for it, so we'll see. I wondered how to get an indie game to have more cultural heft, and I think the idea of a persistent, constantly changing, updating game is such a good way to make that hit. Yeah, for sure. Um, uh, yeah, binary. I have to commit to it, right? And here's what I should just talk about it right now. I mean, we're going to talk more about the living RPG later, but I'll just talk about it now, which is understanding that I'm going to be having a kid in a month. My capacity to do, oh dear lord, my capacity to do certain types of design is going to change quite a bit. What I can spend my time writing or devoting my time to. So doing some fun like map updating and like playtest data collecting, like data collection, I'm good at that. Like that's stuff that I feel like I could really maintain with my lifestyle change that will come about. And I'd be really excited to do it because it also allows me to kind of like scratch that world building itch that I'm excited about. So yeah. And yeah, the ongoing release thing is very much like what I did with Light. The smaller little things along the way. For sure. Okay, so Omen. I literally wrote this entire thing yesterday. I wrote Omen all of yesterday. It's done. I don't have to write it anymore. I'm really excited about Omen. I think it's a fun premise. It's going to be a Zine Quest game. I have no plan for art and layout. I'm actually talking with Luna right now because she's been asking about hiring her services. I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. This will go up on Zine Quest. It's a one-shot game. Every player rolls a big pile of dice at the start of the game, and that's all you get. Whatever those results are, those are the dice that you have to spend throughout the entire session. You'll get some small little abilities that will let you slightly manipulate that pool over time. The premise is that your world is ending. It's fated to end. Are you going to be able to stop it? It's up to you to figure out. It'll be like a nice, clean little zine game. So I'm excited about that. The Rune Engraved Edition. The plan for the Rune Engraved Edition is that it's going to be updated rules, which I think I've largely done. And then it's going to be a combination book, right? It'll have the rule book and the Realm Atlas all in one book, which means it'll be pretty substantial, depending on what the new layout looks like. It's like 220 to 250 pages. So it's going to be a big, beefy book. There'll be new layout. I don't know what the layout plan for it is yet, and I'll want to put some more new stuff in there. Probably like 1 or 2 new realms, some new items and stuff like that. But it's largely just like, here's the definitive rune book. The rules finally the way that I kind of want them to be. Everything you need in one place. And then I can kind of feel free to continue to support Rune after that, knowing like there's the flagship version of it out there. And then there's Nova 2, which I've been like on and off about in terms of designing. I don't know if it's going to be a brand new game. I don't know if it's going to be just a rules update to the existing one. I don't know if it's going to be an optional supplement that comes out that says, here's how you can take existing Nova and update it if you want. I don't know if it's taking the old Sparks and updating them with the new rules. I don't know if it's a brand new set of Sparks. I can't figure this game out. I can't. I know I want to do it. I just can't figure out what it is. And we're not going to solve that problem right now on stream, but just know that I can't figure it out. It haunts me. All right. The other thing that I'll note about Dusk is that I want to make Worm for it, which I will if the funding for Dusk goes well. That's all I'll say about that. Background stuff. So this is stuff that I am working on, but not actively, or very background sort of stuff. Vamp, I mean, I basically made this thing, and I just haven't turned around and like made it. I think what I want to ultimately do with Vamp, by the way, if you don't know what it is, it's my vampire-themed rune roguelike. So it's just combat, really, and like you use a deck of cards to get like prompts and stuff. And I think what I want to do is I want to kind of release it. I'll probably itch fund it. And what I'll do is I'll release it with sort of the goal of there's 3 levels to this whole thing that I want to make, and I'll release it where it's just the dungeon, so it's just your vampire thrall fighting their way out of the dungeon, killing a few bosses, powering up, and then if funding goes well, we'll get the like street level aspect of the castle as the next section, and then if funding goes well, the tower where you'll actually kill the vampire that made you. Um, I think that's kind of my plan, rather than trying to do it all at once. I think I'll have a really hard time doing it all at once, but I basically have the bottom tier done, so I can do that. The cyberpunk game. I know exactly what the setting is. It's a Norse cyberpunk game where the Norse gods have just become megacorps. I even have some very preliminary teaser art from Galen Peugeot for it. That's kind of all I have locked down. I think this is going to be the actual first game that uses my tier system that I started developing. This, of all the settings, makes the most sense to use the tier system. So look for that sometime. Like I said, all these games are not being actively developed. They're just in the background. Sail. I have a weird pirate game that I'm really excited about. A wind crawl, a sail crawl, whatever you want to call it. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be a Lumen 2.0 game. I think just making a pirate game would be fun. I don't want it to be big at all. So I think it'll just be a fun little dinky project. Corvid Court, Aviary. Still haven't written it. Probably should. Probably should just write this game. I like want to, but then I always forget about it when it comes time to like sitting down to write things. Corvid Court Aviary is going to be just taking Corvid Court and doing more birds, more tools, bunch of other stuff. That's the plan. And I'll write it eventually. Cash. Can't really say much about this right now. It's a heist game. I'm not openly talking about it yet just because the person I'm working on it with and I are still ironing out details, but it's a heist game that I am excited about. You know, I haven't written Lumen 2.0, even though I've been designing in it for over a year, and I just don't think I'm going to write it at this point. Which I know some people like want me to write it. And I don't know why, but I can't get myself to write this thing. I think part of it is because like each time I design something in Lumen 2.0, it's different than the other things that came before it. So it's hard to say even what it is. But I don't know. I just am not interested in writing. I don't know. I just am not interested in writing an SRD or a creator kit. It just doesn't sound interesting to me. Knowing that I only have so much time to writing that just doesn't seem like it's a good use of my time, which is a shame because a lot of people like Lumen, but I hope you can just sort of extract how to make a Lumen 2.0 game by reading the existing ones. The Unnamed Rune project that I'm super excited about. It's a roguelike, it's a hex crawl, and it's rune, and it's cooperative, so you're playing with other people. It's not just solo, though you could play it solo. Can't really say very much more about it right now just because it's so cooking in the background, but I'm very, very excited about it. I think it's going to be super cool. People want more rune stuff. People crave rune stuff, and I think this will be something that they will like. And then there's fiction. I'd love to just write some more fiction. I'm like cooking stuff, but I'm not actively working on it enough. And I'd like to do that more. So I will try to do that more. That's projects. Shall we talk about goals? Too bad, we're talking about events. Events, we'll kind of go through this relatively quickly. International publishing is going well. New countries that have either like been confirmed and or actually published things, Japan, Korea, Germany, China, and France, added to the list of Brazil, Spain, and Italy. So there's a lot of them. I actually literally just days ago got the German Slayers sent to me, which is really, really exciting. I'd love to do a lot more of this, working with international publishers. Um, so yeah, that was pretty cool. I have at the tail end of 24 started a massive wave of retail outreach, and I will talk more about that later. Um, a thing that I just wanted to shout out is that Slayers is still fighting near the top 10 games of top rated games on itch in the physical games in our RPG section. Is I think it's at 11. Um, I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that a game that I wrote 3-4 years ago is considered one, almost one of the top 10 top rated games on itch. That means a lot to me. Rate your games on itch. It helps. It makes people feel good. It makes me feel good, at least. So I don't know. I just noticed that and I wanted to shout it out. I tabled at 2 conventions this year, Gen Con and PAX. Gen Con was overwhelming, as it has been every time I've been there. It's fun, but it's exhausting. It's 4 days and it's so many people. It's impossible to move from one side of the hall to the other. You know, it's nice. Financially, it generally works out. And it's nice that it's only like 3.5, 4 hours away from where I live. So it's easy to drive there. But, I mean, my God, it's draining. I don't do anything at the end of the day at Gen Con. I am too tired to, like, engage with my friends, which is the opposite of PAX. PAX is awesome. I love PAX. PAX is so much fun. It's one fewer day. It's a nightmare to get to. We have to drive across the country to get there. And then this year we had to drive through a winter snowstorm, which was thrilling to drive through the Pennsylvania mountains and see all these semi trucks turned over on the road. But it's one fewer day. It's the right size crowd. It's easy to move around. I get to see my friends. I get to play with my friends. Like, we actually engage with each other. PAX continues to be great. One thing that I want to really highlight from PAX this last year is a huge group of Nova nerds came and like hung out at the booth. These are folks who did a Nova stream last year that was really, really fun to watch. And they just kind of all came over and talked about how much they love Nova. They were excited to see that there were things like Luna and Nest, and they're like already brainstorming some cool Nova stuff that I won't talk about now because I don't know if they're actually actively talking about it, but they have some cool stuff planned. It continues to be like the highlight of conventions is seeing my friends in person and then like talking to people who have played your games. It's a nice feeling. Still trying to figure out like good release strategies, like itch funding versus sprint funding on crowdfunders versus just kind of like doing it on my own versus what do I focus on? Small stuff, big stuff, supplements for my own stuff. I've not been good about creating supplements for my own stuff. And I probably should, especially Rune. So the problem is for me and for so many other people is we're attracted to the new shiny thing, right? Like, I would rather write a new game that's more exciting to me. And if we're going to be completely honest with ourselves, we rarely play the games that we buy. So how likely is it that someone's going to buy a supplement to a game that they haven't played, as opposed to buying a new game that they're also not going to play, but they will be happy that they have the new thing? Right? The exception to this is Rune. For my games, I'll say, because it's a solo game and people play solo games. And so people actually play Rune and would want more Rune stuff. So I should make more Rune stuff. Yeah, it's true, Binary. You have to just accept, like, you're going to get a small fraction. And if that fraction is worth it for the time and everything, then do it. But I have found that so far it hasn't been necessarily. It depends on the project. Going back to Light, for example, which was mentioned earlier, it was totally worth it to keep doing season passes of Light, because Light, the lift for making things for Light and laying them out was low compared to trying to make a new supplement for Slayers. It's really hard to make a supplement for Slayers because I had to write it, but then like we kind of wanted to be the same artistic style as Slayers, and Mike does the art and layout for Slayers, and Mike is a very busy guy. So when I do hire him to do work, I want it to be work that we need to prioritize, as opposed to like him spending time on a supplement for Slayers that nobody might care about. So it's tough. In the last 2 months of the year, I went back on a drive through RPG. Um, Reluctantly, I don't like drive through. I think their practices are predatory in terms of the giant cut that they take. But as you can see in the last bullet point, with me going full time in this, you kind of need to open up all revenue streams. So I did that. It doesn't make me a lot of money at all, but I'm there just to be there. I did eventually save up enough publisher points to submit for a deal of the day, so I'm in the queue for that. When that happens, I'll have something more interesting to report, but for now, I'm there. Social media continues to be a difficult thing to deal with. It was better with Blue Sky, but I don't know, man. Like in the last few weeks, Blue Sky just kind of starting to feel like the same place as Twitter in some ways, which is like fine. Yeah, Binary. That's exactly my feeling about drive-through. It sucks. Cut's horrible, but if it just slowly trickles in something, fine, I'll take it. The problem is, as I continue to get burned out on social media, I continue to get disconnected with people that are my friends in the scene. So how do I stay connected to them? Well, one of the things that I've done in the second half of the year that I'm really happy about is I started doing like regular meetings with people. The highlight of them is my bi-weekly meetings that I have with Will Jobst. Will Jobst is a game designer. They're the editor on pretty much all of my games. They're an amazing person, a very good friend of mine. And Will and I just meet every 2 weeks. Tuesday mornings, we sit together online and we just chat for an hour. And it's like, it truly is the highlight of the week. So I would like to do so much more of that. That's something that I would like to do, is I would like to kind of carve out that time to have a semi-regular meeting. I think the regularity of it is important with people in the industry, and specifically like with my friends. I am going to do something that is not just for my friends, which is, I kind of alluded to it earlier today on Blue Sky, actually, which is I want to do sort of an office hours thing, where I will have just windows of time that people can kind of come in. And I don't know if it's going to be like scheduled or not, but like they could just come and have up to like 30 minutes of my time to just talk to me about game design. Unless we're friends, and then we can talk about whatever. But like, even if we don't know each other, and because you probably have questions, right? How do I make an itch page? Where should I release things? How much money should I budget for this? X, Y, and Z. And like I said at the very beginning of the stream, I want to be an open book. As an academic, I have office hours. Well, I had office hours. I'm not an academic anymore. And that's a valuable time for students to just come and talk to me, ask me questions. And I want to do that for the scene. I'm not saying that I'm some great font of wisdom, but I've been doing it enough with a decent amount of success that I feel like I could probably answer some of your questions. So I want to do that. And then I want to have like just, again, like regular meetings with my friends to just hang out. The last notable event that, as I alluded to, I'm going full-time into this. That's the decision that has been made. With our child being born next month, it's important for us to have somebody home. I'm going to be home, which means I'm going to do game design. I'm going to do game design full-time, which I'm really, really, really excited about. I'm leaving academia. I've been a professor of psychology for a number of years, for about a decade. I really just don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. There's a lot of reasons that I won't get into because it's getting too much into my personal life, but really, really excited about that. I don't have a whole lot to share about it because it's literally like just starting, but that's the plan. All right, let's talk about goals. We got last year's goals, next year's goals, and then finances for those of you who are keeping track at home about kind of where we are in the outline of the review. last year's goals. So I just copy and pasted my goals from last year, put them here. Let's talk about them. Did I continue the Novaverse? Absolutely. I released 2 games for it, Luna and Nest, and I'm continuously developing Dusk and Nova 2. So I'm really leaning into the Novaverse, and I want to do a lot more fiction writing. Aaron Voigt wrote a really cool short story in the Novaverse, and that was inspiring. And now I want to do that myself. I wanted to table at 3+ conventions. I didn't. I did 2, PAX and Gen Con. In 23, I did Origins as well, and Origins sucks ass as a convention. Don't go to Origins, or don't table at it. I wanted to do Gamehole, but I kind of asked too late, so I was on the wait list and I didn't get in. And Breakout Con isn't really like a tabling con, and it just didn't work out timing wise. So, but I'm hoping to get to Gamehole Con next year, which is interesting because then like all my conventions are in the second half of the year, August, October, and December. I'd love it for one of them to be in the first half of the year, but so if you know any good cons in the first half of the year, let me know. I wanted to do a balance of smaller games alongside big ones. Yes, Emily, that's totally true. Origins is good as a con for playing board games, 100%. It just isn't good for RPGs. Yeah, exactly. I think I did a pretty good job this year of doing smaller games with Luna and Nest. Loot is like a big game in my mind, even though like, I mean, page-wise, they're different enough. But I never really made like small stuff. I kind of want to do that. Like that's why I'm excited about Omen. Omen's a zine. It's, I think, 2,000 words, maybe a little more. It's not long. I wrote it all in one day. So I kind of want to do more of that stuff. Sprint crowdfunding. I tried it and it was good-ish, is what I'll say. I did it with Nest and I did it with Luna. Both of those were successful. They both each were about $5,000 campaigns, which is great. It's nice. They funded. Is it gangbusters? No. Is it great for my mental health? Absolutely. Oh my God, does it feel good to have a campaign done in a week? You start it, you stop it in a week, you're done. Dragging it out is just painful. I dragged out loot. I made it 3 weeks, and I shouldn't have done that. It was not a good idea. So sprint crowdfunding continues to be the right way. I did not set up a more scheduled streaming and video plan, and I will continue to probably not have that this year. Play more in real life games. Yes, I did that, but they're not role-playing games. I'm playing so many card games and board games with people in real life, which has been fantastic. We're just not playing role-playing games. I have played more RPGs in 24 than I did previously, though. Which was really nice. I found some groups that I played with. Shout out again to Aaron Voigt, who ran a killer Spire mini arc and is running the Luna arc and a bunch of other people. And then finding ways to stay connected to people outside social media. Kinda, you know. I've started doing those regular hangs, which is nice. I just want to do more of it. And I've already alluded to a little bit about what that process is going to look like. What do I want to do in 2025? Well, I want to create a whole bunch of wholesale connections. I alluded to this earlier. In November and December, I reached out to a bunch of retailers, and I'm going to reach out to a whole bunch more. And I want to create a lot of wholesale connections. This is something that I have decided based off of conversations with Will, that this is a really smart thing to do if you're going full time, is to like, I have a massive back catalog that I should be letting that do work for me. And how do you do that? You get retailers putting those books on the shelves and just sort of like passively making sure that you're updating their stock when they need it. This is a relatively light lift for a decent payout. So I'm going to be doing more of that. I stopped like shelving with IPR, but I'm going to be shelving with them again. You know, and so I have a shit ton of books coming from a printer right now to allow me to do that. I would like to write a substantial piece of fiction, like something something that feels kind of cool. I don't know what it means for it to be substantial, but I don't know. I want to write something. Thorn and Dusk are my happy place games, my passion projects, that solid base that I can build on. Going back to that light thing that was mentioned again, I want it to kind of feel like light all over again. I want Thorn and Dusk to have a solid base that says, here's how you can just play the game, core rules, and then here's how you can continue to support the game with modules or new supplements or seasonal releases or whatever. I like a season pass. I agree, Aaron. 2025 is the year of fiction. I want to soft launch the live RPG. This will likely happen in the near end of the year, rather than early in the year, because I need Dusk to be in a place that I feel it will work. I will probably beta launch it with friends and fellow designers midway through the year. And if it's working, I will soft launch it to a wider group. Again, just to quickly talk about the live RPG, the idea is it's a living world that everybody's updating. It would be the Novaverse. It would primarily be working with Dusk, but in like a crazy pie in the sky scenario is that map doesn't just update based off of Dusk and affect Dusk. It affects Nova as well. So that whatever people do in Nova 2, when that gets created, that affects the map. And the map affects your Nova 2 sessions as well. And then any other games that I kind of create in the Novaverse, like having them update the map would be really fucking cool. It would be a massive, massive project to figure out. So it will be a soft launch. I like to blog more. I like blogging. Kind of. I think I kind of like blogging. I like writing things, and then I like just like putting it out there and then just not looking at it again. I'm so weird where like I don't like certain types of academic or theoretical discussions of games, but then I like blogs to a certain degree. So I don't know. I have to figure out how to do it in a way that makes it satisfying to me, but I like it. And again, I've said it many, many times. I want to create more regular meetings and hangs. So I don't know. If we're friends and if you're watching this and you want to do this, let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's hang. Okay. Last thing before we get into finances, the 2024 shoutouts. Will Yobst gets a shout out. Will is just a beautiful person, really kind friend, and has been a major lift for me as I was having a really, really, really bad year. Has been really, really a good and kind person for me. The Dragon Slayers crew. I've been playing Dragon Slayers for a few months now with a group of people, and they're just an absolute delight. It's so much fun playing games with them. So shout out to all those folks who've been. Will is one of them. Sebastian, Aaron, Josh, you all are great. And then shout out to Radlands. It's my game of the year. It's such a good game. I love Radlands so much. It's not a role-playing game, but it's my game of the year for sure. You should play Radlands. All right. This is your warning. We're going to start talking about finances now. If you don't want to talk about money or hear about money, now would be a great time for you to either stop the video if you're watching it and or bounce if you're watching it live. Take your time. But we are approaching the finances time. So I'm going to talk about money. I'm going to talk about revenue, expenses, and then the overall number. So yeah, let's talk about it. And I talk about this every year, but especially as I go into this being full time, it's especially important for me to think about this stuff. Okay, now let's talk about it. So here we go. This is updated as of the last day of 2024, so it is all of the finances. The big milestone, revenue on itch. I crossed $100,000 in revenue on Itch this year. This is lifetime revenue on Itch. So my Itch account is like 4 years old ish. So I just crossed on like December 30th $100,000 in revenue on Itch, which is mind blowing. Which is also kind of interesting to think like I kicked $10,000 towards Itch, which I'm happy to do. I'm glad they're providing a fantastic platform for us. Yeah, $10,000 in revenue on, or 100,000, sorry, on Itch. What's revenue for this year? Well, we're sitting at about $90,000 in revenue this year. So that's money in. That does not mean that I made $90,000 and put $90,000 into my pocket. Let's talk about expenses in a little bit and eventually get to profit. But $90,000 came in, approximately. How does that break down? Well, about 25 grand came from Itch. So that's about $1,000 less than last year, which shows a somewhat consistent performance year over year for Itch. Which is interesting because in 2023, which is what I mean when I say last year, January of 23 was a huge month for me. Massive month, both on Itch and on Shopify, because that was a bleed over from when Rune was first released at the tail end of 2023. Rune was massive. It continues to be massive. And so, or whenever I released Rune, 22. So January of 2023 was outrageously big last year. And also there was another really big month in 23 because I was on some sort of like itch bundle. So despite having like those two crazy months in 23, the fact that 24 basically performed the same is nice, because I didn't have any crazy months this year. In total, there were about 2,100 orders or purchases. The biggest month in 24 was June. I made about $3,800. That was when a summer sale was going on. As a point of comparison, my biggest last year, 23, was in January because of the Rune Bleed. I just want to point out Dusk and Thorn because they're my project, my passion projects. Selling about 230 copies of each of those feels really cool. Lumen, I like to just update when people buy it. Most people don't buy Lumen. It's sitting at a shit ton of downloads, right? You can see it's at 46,000 downloads over time. Usually people buy it. It went up about $10,000 or 10,000 downloads this year from where it was last year. I sold 457 copies of Rune on Itch. It just continues to be my most popular game. That's a drop, obviously, from when it first released, but it's still just, it's so much bigger than every other game I have. Like, it's of the, I should have looked this up. I mean, I might as well. It's all open season here. Yeah, of that $100,000, Rune is 21.5 of it, right? It's a lot. Rune's doing a lot of lifting. A lot of lifting. People like the game, which means I should make some more games for it or more supplements for it, but I don't. So that's Itch. Let's talk about Shopify, which is where my physical sales are. I made $11,500. That's $13,000 less than last year. That's a huge drop, a massive drop. Way fewer book sales. 261 in total on the year. The conversion rate went down about 1.5% from where it was before. Obviously, $11,500 is nothing to sneeze at, but when it was 24,000 last year, that's not great to see. The biggest month was in February. I don't know why February of all months, but even then it wasn't a particularly good month. Rune is still the highest selling game, but it sold about 200 fewer physical copies in 24 than it did in 23. I mean, ultimately that kind of makes sense, right? I mean, fewer people are going to buy the game as it ages because more people already have it at that point. But also you're meeting new people along the way. So yeah, I don't know. That's a problem for me, if I'm going to be completely honest. The fact that it went down that much, that's not good. I have to figure out how to shore that up. And part of that is, advertising my Shopify page more, and maybe I need to update the SEO and stuff like that. I'm also going to try and shore it up by, again, leaning on that wholesale stuff, which isn't going to, that money doesn't go into this total, it's another total. But if I'm not moving books from my store, then I need books to be moved in other people's stores. So this was an interesting thing. What's important to note here is, as we'll see in a little bit, it's not that books don't move, because they move at conventions at about a similar rate to where they've sold before. But this is a thing that I found fascinating. I'm not happy about it, but I found it fascinating. The top referrers, Itch continues to be the top referrer. The Rune website is the number 2 referrer to my website, meaning people go to Rune's website and then go to Shopify to buy Rune. Which just means more people are going to this website than I realize. I don't do anything with this website. It's probably telling me that I should do something with this website. And then my website is the 3rd referrer. Interestingly, the social media sources towards my store have changed. Last year, it was Twitter. Now, if people are coming to my store from a social media source, according to Shopify, it's Reddit or YouTube, which is interesting. I have definitely seen spikes on like itch views and other things like that when games get mentioned on Reddit. So it kind of makes sense that similarly, depending on what link people put in Reddit when they link one of my games, they'll either go to itch or my page. YouTube is coming from my videos. I make videos about my games, and I've got a link there, so that makes sense. Yeah, it's true, Binary. Like, Reddit is effective. I don't like going there, and I certainly don't post there. But it's if people mention your stuff on Reddit, people will look at it. Conventions. I made about $14,700 on conventions. That's $5,000 less than last year, but I went to one fewer convention. I didn't go to Origins, so we have to factor that out. Gen Con, I made about $8,300. That's pretty much what I made last year, so it's pretty consistent. PAX, I made $6,400. That's about $2,000 less than I made the year before. $6,400 is still obviously great. Happy to get $6,400. You have to subtract away the cost of the convention and everything, but it's still nice. But the fact that I made like $8,400 the year before, that wasn't great to see. But it was also, I didn't really know what to expect financially with PAX, because this is my 3rd PAX. First PAX, we just had like one table and like 4 games, and we just kind of stacked them. And I think I made like a little over $2,000 the first PAX. Second PAX, which was 23, I made about $8,400. So I jumped from $2,000 to $8,000. So it was hard to kind of predict where this third PAX was going to be. I guess it kind of makes sense that it was somewhere in between. It would have obviously been happy for it to keep going up. It didn't. I think I have a lot to learn about PAX. Having seen some people's booths and what's really successful and what's not as successful, I have some thoughts about how the booth will change that I'm not going to talk about yet. I want to brew on them a little bit more. Crowdfunding. About $33,000 in revenue came from crowdfunding. It's about 3,000 less than last year, so that's pretty similar when you consider scale. In general, I had smaller crowdfunding projects. I had Luna and Nest, which were like not particularly big, but we already talked a little bit about how you know, Reap didn't do as well as I would have liked, and Loot did fine. Oh wait, Reap is like a while ago, but anyway, it was fine. It was fine. I gotta get better at that. And then there's the other category. This is where wholesale lives, and this is largely wholesale. This number 9,300, and then commission. I did like a couple things, nothing very big this year, and then royalties. Royalties come from international publishers, which are still like, that stuff is just starting to trickle in. That's stuff that takes years to kind of really get going because they have to take the time to translate the game and then do the art and layout if they're changing it a little bit, and then they have to crowdfund it, and then they have to print it and distribute it. And so it takes a while for royalties for international deals to come in. So that stuff is starting to trickle in. But the wholesale stuff was really promising. So I'm hoping to really lean into wholesale this upcoming year. So my costs this year were about $30,000. That's the costs that go into paying for conventions, shipping costs, printing costs, commissions, and anything else like that. There's a lot of things that go into costs, and I'm just not going to break it all down right now because that's not super exciting. But what does that leave us at? That leaves us at a net of approximately $60,000 as profit. That's down $10,000 from last year. Last year I made $70,000. The year before that I made about $34,000. So I went 34, 70, 60. So it's kind of the same pattern as PAX, if you'll notice. Small start, big jump, and then a slight backtracking. It's a great number. I'm obviously very happy with that. $60,000 is great. It's kind of close to what my last salary was as a professor. I don't like the slump. And we know where the slump comes from, right? We know exactly what the slump is from. It's from Shopify. There's $11,300 missing, I'll say, in terms of sales. If we were to even just get most of that back, it would be very similar to last year. So that's the thing I got to shore up somehow. Itch, crowdfunding, everything else is relatively stable. A little smaller than the year before, but ultimately pretty similar. The book sales being so different was astonishing, and just something for me to figure out. But like I said, a big part of my strategy for 2025 is to do wholesale. Do really lean into wholesale and lean into my back catalog as something that I can benefit from. Yes, it's nice making new things, but I have put years into making things. I should let those things work for me. And that means having people sell my games at their stores. So I've started doing that. I will be doing a whole lot more of that. I'm hoping that stores get excited and start re-upping their orders soon, or that their books are going to start turning over. And you'll see my games in like the usual places too, like IPR, Exalted. I got to get like re-upped on all those places. But that's going to be a big part of my strategy going into next year, especially because I'm having a kid, right? And this year in particular, 2025, will be a hard year to get a lot of like writing done. That's why I'm doing so much writing right now. I'm trying to get so much writing done in the next 4 weeks so that stuff is kind of done and I can hand it off to the people who do layout and art and stuff like that. And then I can do the crowdfunding stuff with a largely finished product. But wholesale is something that I could do all year long. Kid in my hand, packing books in a box. I'll be okay. So yeah, that's my end number. It's still my number. I still hit the number that was sort of the goal that my wife and I have talked about in order for me to kind of feel good about doing this full time. So I did hit it. I don't want to sound like I'm unhappy about it. I am very happy about it. But I'm a numbers person, and especially as I go into this full time, I want to make note of the down of 10,000. I want to note that it basically comes from one source, and so I just have to figure out how to solve that problem. And that's going to be my plan for this year of 2025. So yeah, that's my year in review. If folks like I said, if folks have questions, you are always welcome to drop them in chat or in comments, and I will answer them when I see them or when I get around to them. I just want to wrap up by saying, I really appreciate all of you who watched this, who supported my stuff, not only in 24, but in previous years and for years to come. I'm really, really thankful that I get to do this full time now. And it's only because of all of you that I get to do that. So I do truly mean it. Thank you for being there through, like I said, the best and worst year of my life ever. You've all been great. I'm going to wrap it up here. My voice is definitely tired after talking for an hour and 20 minutes. Glad it was helpful. I hope you enjoyed this. Have yourselves a lovely, lovely rest of the day, wherever and whenever it is you are. And talk to you soon. Bye.